I'd like to call this meeting to order. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Sterling?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mrs. Brogan?
Here.
Mrs. Ranieri?
Here.
Mr. Smith? Jill Brogan?
Here.
Mrs. Meeks here.
Chris Arduino, recording secretary.
Terrell Yarborough, superintendent.
Shelley Wagner, human resources.
Michelle Herb, curriculum and instruction.
Josh Rand, business and operations.
All right, thank you. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. You want to lead us off?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, turn it over to Dr. Yarbrough.
Thank you. I had to move out of the way so my head didn't fix that. That was good. Mission statement. The mission of the Harlem Consolidated School District as a vital part of the community is to help diverse learners realize their limited potential by providing an educational program dedicated to academic excellence and the development of strong character in a safe and respectful learning environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Ranieri?
Aye.
Jill Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks? Aye. Mr. Sterling?
All right. No comments from the community, so we're going to be turning it over to Josh Rand.
Okay, thank you very much.
Skipping right over you, Mr. Yarborough.
Already did it.
He already did it.
Yeah.
We
I was
flipped
moving
over.
fast. It was just.
I was reading that
You're
big
all right.
ass fan.
We had a whole discussion on that.
That is the brand
That
name.
is the
That's
name,
what we
too.
thought, but it just looked
Yeah.
funny.
I'm just glad I wasn't the only one who first
Sorry.
saw it. I'm like, so is this, what's the actual brand? Oh, that is, okay.
The engineer got real technical. He's like, it's a big thing.
Like, how big?
I think they want naming rights for the.
So as everyone knows, 9 months ago, the board approved us moving forward with planning and putting out, designing and putting out to bid this CTE project at the high school. So we've done just that over the last 9 months, and there's been lots of meetings and design calls, and it's been a daily set of work, and it really has almost been a year. I know we gave approval 9 months ago, but I know this board and a lot of people at this table spent a lot of time on this project. So we put the Rock Cut project out to bid first in January, and a couple of those line items came in a little high, so we're rebidding some of that. But we took some of that information and tried to make tweaks before we bid the high school piece. But as many of you know, we're in an odd, high inflationary construction environment. So when we opened the high school bids, they did come in over the estimate. So we sat down with Greg from Ringland, Greg Cladar, who's here today, and Tracy from DLA and her team, and we started to brainstorm what are value engineering items that we can make, and a lot of this was driven by Greg. And so there's 3 docs in front of you. We're here tonight to approve the guaranteed maximum price, which doesn't include the soft cost, and so you can see that is this document. On the back page, under the soft cost, there are 2 items. Permar says to be determined, and then there is an insurance builder's risk policy that we need to take, which is gonna be about $35,000. So those 2 items will be about 60 total. And that should be it, right, Greg? I think that's everything. So if you go to the value engineering page, I know some of you have looked through this already. It's extremely thorough with the items that Greg came up with in terms of tweaks we can make without making substantive changes to the scope of the project. We did go through and make scope changes, bringing ceilings down, changing some materials per Greg's recommendation before we went to bid, and then after, these are the proposed changes. In discussions with Greg, we recommended accepting all of them except for the first item, and that is because council said we need to leave that one in there as that bonding piece. So other than that, everything else, and just so the board knows too, there is a construction contingency in this guaranteed amount of $442,000. One other thing that we also did not accept as an alternate was the wood covering of the stairs, which based on how things could go, it is kind of a focal point we could add before the end based on how things are going in the construction process. So thank you, Greg, for going and working so hard with the vendors to scale some of these things back. So the last kind of piece that I wanted to talk about is the funding/cost summary page. So the top section of this is what we talked about originally. So we have 5 million in ESSER funds, the 8.5 million in bonds, and those were issued the first week of March. PMA came back with a projection of interest at 465,000 because PMA is holding those bond funds. So I think that number looks pretty good. So you almost have 9 million total between the bond principal and the interest on that. With 500,000 in DCEO funds, that's split up by a $200,000 grant and a $300,000 grant. So I actually accepted the $200,000 statement of award today, and both of those grants are written so that the expenditures can be adjusted back. Because I wanted to be careful that we weren't accepting a project before that date, because sometimes grants can't be retro, but the DCO date is already set. So I feel okay with that $500,000. We did get a donation of 250,000, and we had talked about putting $1 million in originally. So that puts us at 15.7. That is 1.88 short of the total amount that we're projecting. So I went through and made another set of recommendations in terms of how we can close that. I am recommending that we transfer $250,000 in debt service interest. The last time we did this was 2010. We transferred $1.1 million in interest. So that's in fund balance that isn't necessarily set for a payment. So I think that's a pretty low impact use of those funds there. When we get closer to the end of ESSER 3, right now we've written all of ESSER 3, but typically when we get to the end, there's something that came in under, we have some room. So I'm hoping 50 to 100 we'll be able to reallocate back to this project. I'm pretty comfortable with 50, but it easily could be 100. And then the working cash fund balance, I'm recommending a transfer of 250,000. We have about 700 in there. Those aren't funds that we really ever use, so that would leave 450,000 in that fund. So that would leave an additional 1.3 million that we need to fund. But I went through and projected our revenues and expenditures the best I could through the rest of the year. We were looking at about $3.5 million excess. I think we'll be at least 4.5 million. So my plan was, if everyone is good with it, to transfer that additional million out into the capital projects funds before the end of the year, so that the ed fund still comes in on budget, but we take that million over. That would then leave 331,000 at the end of the project, which seems pretty reasonable to me when we're looking at this. So that was my proposed plan to shore up the additional funds. Because we've scaled and tweaked for months now, and there's not much else to scale and tweak.
Any can kicking raises the price because that's what happens.
Yep.
I do commend Greg with this value engineering that you guys went back and did. I thank you for that because just the savings alone, I mean, so just switching the carriers, $112,000 that we're not trying to fund. So I want to say thank you for that. And so potential savings of up to 819,000?
It'll be 115 less because we didn't accept the first one, so it's 704,000.
Yeah, 704, but that's still, that was on, I remember seeing that original one.
Yeah. And this culminates one set of work and now begins another one, right, Greg? So,
Yeah.
so you know, as long as the board approves tonight, Greg will give the go-ahead in contracts. 3-4 weeks, you think, before you see any underground stuff, or?
We need to coordinate with the school.
Sure.
My conversations with our site contractor, they're prepared to start in the middle of April, which isn't very far from now. I think it's, the way the project goes, there is quite a bit of dirt to move, and in getting the electrical done is a key component. We're relocating the ComEd line, but we need to get all that dirt moved first, because we don't want to be moving dirt with conduit in the ground. So that ComEd's requiring that we put a sleeve all the way from the connection deck to the south side, back by the dock, where the transformer is. And the plan is to get all that work, and once that line is in, we can take the old one out, foundation start, and then we get into the building portion of the summer. So that's the initial start of the job. then it kind of goes unscheduled. You know, we get the next big step would be precast. There's a lead time on the precast. We need to confirm that, but that's probably going to take us into August. And then boom, steel, masonry, and then the down will start to fall pretty quick as we get into the fall. And just the lead time on the precast is what we're looking at.
One important note too is that based on electrical panel timelines and some other factors, culinary won't be up until next summer. And so because we pushed that another year, we had an electrical bid that we probably wouldn't have had, and it saved us like $500,000 more. So we would have loved to have that done, but it just logistically didn't fit, so.
We had some conversations before, discussions on some of the things we could cut or eliminate, and one that was still open, and maybe you can answer this quickly, was, ironically enough, as a big ass fans, was making sure, because one of the discussions was, hey, if it gets hot in automotive, you can just open up the garage doors per se to get some of that air in, but that was not a possibility because we needed to keep everything set and closed. Is that taking that into account? How are we planning so that we don't cook the kids in there?
Sure.
Knowing that we can't open those doors.
So we only proposed removing 2 of the fans out of the 5, so there'll still be 3 fans
And we know,
there.
we're confident that that will be enough to keep the temperatures fine, given the
The engineer
activities?
seemed to be okay with it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it isn't an air-conditioned space. It's heated and then open to outside air. There's a lot of air circulation there just by the nature with CO and the vehicles. And part of that system that turns that air over. I mean, I don't know what the use would be in the summertime for that, but most of the school year, I think you're gonna be good. Sometimes in September, it could be some warm days, and there's some time in the spring too that you'll probably see some more days.
At 2,400 a fan, that's a pretty easy fix if that
Okay, yeah,
becomes
that's
an issue.
also fair. Okay, I think that was the only one that I had that was kind of outstanding and making sure that was accounted for.
Anyone have questions or concerns about the additional funds and how I can move that around?
Do you have a confidence level based on what you're here, like, based on where we have to hit? These seems, I mean, obviously you said yes, you're proposing them, so there's a confidence level, there's,
So
do you see any, like, anything you're gonna propose is gonna be confidence, but kind of the happy path, right? Like, this is what's probably gonna happen. Is there any
With the-
potential risk, unrealized risk that you see in these numbers?
with the dollar amounts here?
Yeah, we're kind of making sure where these additional funds are coming from, because
Yep.
those are being pulled from areas that they could be spent for other items, obviously.
So the debt service can't be because that's a special fund, but it does allow for interest out. It's been 12 or 13 years since I made that transfer, but I did go back in the code and take a look at that. So we'll have a resolution drawn for that and make sure that is good. But based on everything I read the last couple of days, I believe that's fine.
But no risk of us needing those funds for any other items. I guess that's where I was looking
Can't
less
use it.
than the legality of it. per se.
So the debt service funds come in for those payments specifically, so that's just accrued interest.
Okay.
So your options are abate that for a future payment or transfer that here. So I can't use it for anything else other than that. So in the working cash, no, neither of those sources do I see there being a problem on them.
That's fine. I mean, if we have to trim our belts a little bit as a worst case scenario, that's fine, to bring ourselves into any sort of true financial pain.
Yeah, I don't believe this puts us in any kind of jeopardy.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns with me?
I guess we had discussed on some of these items as being, as I refer to as trim level, right? Things we're taking out, but we'd ultimately like to add back in. Do we have ways that we would know when those risk gates come up to going, okay, guys, we have the money, we can put in the stairs, or, yeah, we have the money, we can do some of these other items?
Stairs were the main item, right?
That was the main item.
I think that was the big one. There might have been a few small things we're like, well, if we can, great, but
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's because this project's gonna go 15 months, we'll work with Greg on what the lead time on the stairs are and how things are trending.
okay. Just making sure we go, yeah, that'd be nice, and then we get done and go, hey, what happened to those? Well, we never came back or circled back to it, just making sure there's a mechanism in place that we don't lose track, or we say, we definitely don't have the funds, we're not going to do it, or we might have the funds, let's vote on it, just something to make sure that those come back around.
Yeah, and And that contingency to me is pretty healthy. I know overall as a project, it's not a ton, but, we've worked at DLA, not necessarily with Ringland, but I typically don't use, I don't wanna jinx us, but we typically don't use all of that. So
Okay.
hopefully, between DLA and Greg, we, you know, if we use a portion of it, that's fine, or ultimately, if we use all of it, then that's what it's there for, but I would hope and foresee that we probably can add that one back.
Okay, I would just make sure that we know one way or the other, just to let the board know.
Sure.
Correct.
Because
Well, we
if
hit
it's
that
a
point
no,
if
we don't have
it's-
the funds, and there's other things we may be able to do, that's all. That's it for me.
That's all I have.
I just want to echo Mike with what you said about Greg and all that he did, but also Josh and Pam. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into this, and they live this to get it here. But also thanking you all too for the support of this project. So appreciate it.
You had mentioned that start digging up this month? Did I hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, if that happens, can you guys send us an invite?
No,
Yeah, we would have ribbon cutting
Okay.
with legislators and mayors and board, yeah, everyone, yep.
And I knew that the groundbreaking would be that way, so we don't really, I mean, sometimes we move ahead of it, sometimes we don't, but there's probably a good 4 weeks worth of work there. I mean, I don't think it's so pressing that we have to start by the 15th. I mean, weather's always an issue in the spring.
Before May, though, seems realistic.
Oh, I think we want to get going.
So we'll do that,
Yeah.
Yep.
How about tomorrow?
I still have to look.
Well, you know, we have shovels in our office, I can be chilling out there, we can go
I'm just ready to get this
Downstairs.
project
Yep.
started.
Look, I'm off Friday, who's all off Friday?
To make it happen. Any more discussions, comments? All right.
I have a comment. I just want to say, great work to everybody involved. I mean, I know we have been pushing for this well over a year, as Josh stated earlier. A lot of discussion for, probably 3 years?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
At least. Great job, everybody, and let's do what we can do for the kids.
Thank you. All right. With that, I would like to can I get a motion for a recommendation to approve the guaranteed maximum price with Ringland Johnson for the HHS CTE edition at $15,761,221.
Motion, second.
Mrs. Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Neary?
Aye.
Jill Brogan?
Aye.
Mrs. Meeks? Aye. Mrs. Sterling?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
All right, anything else? We've approved it. Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good job, everybody.
Congrats, everybody.
Thank you,
There you go.
guys.
Thank you.